The dust cloud on the horizon was growing larger, and Amelia Lawson knew with cold certainty that the riders were coming for her. Their torches and ropes ready for a woman they believed had murdered the banker's son in cold blood, though her hands had never touched a weapon that terrible night. She urged her exhausted mare forward through the scrubland of West Texas, the August heat of 1876 bearing down on her like a physical weight. Her dark hair had come loose from its pins hours ago, whipping across her face as she rode. The town of Pecos was somewhere behind her now, along with everything she had known. Her modest boarding house room, her job at the general store, the quiet life she had built after her parents died. All of it gone in the span of a single evening when she had been in the wrong place at the wrong moment. She had been walking back from delivering fabric to Mrs. Henderson when she heard the gunshot. It came from the alley beside the Silver Star Saloon. Like a fool, she had run toward the sound instead of away from it. She found Timothy Marsh lying in the dirt, blood spreading across his fancy vest, his eyes already glazing over. The gun was still smoking a few feet away. She had knelt beside him, her training as a nurse overriding common sense, pressing her hands to the wound even though she could see it was fatal. That was when 3 men stumbled out of the saloon, drunk and looking for entertainment. They saw her kneeling over the body, her hands covered in blood, and started shouting. Within minutes, half the town had gathered. Timothy's father, Gerald Marsh, the most powerful man in Pecos, took one look at the scene and declared her a murderer. She tried to explain, but her voice was drowned out by the growing mob. Sheriff Dixon had locked her in a cell, promising a fair trial, but she had seen the look in his eyes. Gerald Marsh owned half the county, including the sheriff. There would be no fair trial. That night, her friend Sarah had slipped her a key and a horse, whispering urgently that the mob was gathering, that Marsh had convinced them to skip the trial altogether. So Amelia had run. Now, 3 days later, her supplies were nearly gone, her horse was failing, and the posse was gaining ground. She could see individual riders now, maybe 8 or 10 men. They would catch her within the hour. The landscape offered little cover. Scrub brush, scattered mesquite trees, endless stretches of parched earth. The Pecos River was somewhere to her left, but crossing it would only trap her. Her mare stumbled, and Amelia felt a spike of fear. If the horse went down, it was over. Then she saw it. A small ranch house in the distance, with a barn and a few outbuildings. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone was home. It was a desperate gamble, but she had no other options. She turned her mare toward the ranch, praying whoever lived there had a shred of mercy. As she drew closer, she could see the place was well maintained despite its isolation. The fences were sturdy, the barn freshly painted. A few horses grazed in a corral. Someone took pride in this land. She rode straight into the yard and dismounted, her legs nearly buckling after days in the saddle. The front door opened before she could knock. A man stepped out onto the porch, and Amelia found herself looking up at someone who seemed carved from the same harsh landscape she had been crossing. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the kind of lean strength that came from hard work rather than leisure. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling at his collar, and his eyes were an unusual shade of gray-blue that studied her with cautious intelligence. He looked to be in his late 20s, perhaps 30. A rifle rested in the crook of his arm, but he held it casually, not pointing it at her. "Please," Amelia said, and was horrified to hear her voice break. "They're coming for me. I didn't do what they say I did, but they won't listen. They're going to hang me." The man's expression did not change, but his eyes flicked past her to the horizon. She knew he could see the dust cloud, hear the distant sound of hoofbeats. What are they saying you did? His voice was deep, measured. Murder. The banker's son in Picos. But I only found him. I was trying to help. I'm a nurse. I was trying to stop the bleeding, but he was already gone. The words tumbled out of her in a rush. The man was silent for a long moment, his gaze moving from her to the approaching riders and back again. She could see him calculating, weighing her words against the risk of helping her. "Please," she said again. "I have nowhere else to go." Something shifted in his expression. He stepped back and gestured toward the door. "Inside, quickly." She did not wait for him to change his mind. She hurried up the porch steps and into the house. He followed, closing the door behind them. "There's a root cellar," he said, moving through the main room toward the kitchen. "Under the rug there. Can you fit in it?" "Yes, but what about my horse? I'll handle it. Go, now." Amelia ran to where he pointed. She pulled back the woven rug to reveal a trapdoor. It opened to show a dark space below, accessed by a wooden ladder. The smell of earth and stored vegetables rose up. Without hesitation, she climbed down. The man appeared above her. "Stay quiet, no matter what you hear," he said. Then he lowered the trapdoor, and she was plunged into darkness. She could hear his footsteps above, the sound of the rug being replaced. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She pressed her hand over her mouth to muffle her breathing. Minutes passed. Then she heard hoofbeats, many of them, entering the yard. The jingle of spurs and tack, men's voices rough and angry. "Ho there!" someone shouted. It sounded like Deputy Frank Carson, one of Sheriff Dixon's men. She heard the front door open. The man who had hidden her must have stepped back onto the porch. "Help you gentlemen." His voice was calm, almost bored. "We're tracking a fugitive," Carson said. "Woman on a bay mare. You seen anyone ride through here?" "When?" "Within the last hour." "No one's been through here. Mind if we look around?" There was a pause. Amelia held her breath. "I do mind, actually," the man said. "This is private property. We're a legal posse deputized by Sheriff Dixon of Picos. We have authority to search for a fugitive." "Your authority ends at the county line. This is Reeves County, not Picos County. You want to search my property, you need to bring me a warrant from Sheriff Hartley." Amelia felt a flicker of hope. He was protecting her, using the law itself as a shield. "Now you listen here," another voice said. Gerald Marsh. She would recognize that cultured, cruel tone anywhere. "That woman murdered my son, my boy. You're going to stand there and hide behind county lines. I'm standing here telling you I have not seen any woman. And I'm reminding you that you have no legal right to be on my land without permission, which you do not have." "We saw her horse tracks," Carson said. "They lead right to your ranch. Lots of tracks out here. Wind blows them around. You might be following old trails. Yates Brennan, isn't it?" Marsh's voice had turned calculating. "I know you. You keep to yourself out here. Don't cause trouble. Smart man. So let me make this simple. That woman is a killer. She shot my Timothy in the back like a coward. We just want justice. You help us and I'll remember it. I'm a generous man to my friends." "And your enemies?" Yates asked. "I make sure they regret it." The threat hung in the air. Amelia felt sick. She was going to get this man killed. He should just hand her over. "Mr. Marsh," Yates said, and his voice had gone colder, harder. "I've heard about you. You own half of Picos and you make sure everyone knows it. But you don't own me and you don't own this land. I've told you I have not seen your fugitive. You can accept that and ride on, or you can try to force your way onto my property. But I promise you if you do that, some of you won't ride back." There was a shocked silence. "You threatening us?" Carson demanded. "I'm stating facts. This is my land. You're not welcome on it. Leave." "There's 10 of us and 1 of you," another man said. "Better odds than I've faced before." There was something in Yates's tone that made Amelia shiver. This was not a man who made idle threats, The silence stretched out. She could almost feel the tension, the men weighing their options. Finally, Marsh spoke. "We'll be back with a warrant. You do that." She heard the horses turning, riding away. But Yates did not move. He stayed on the porch for what felt like an eternity. Finally, his footsteps came back inside. The rug shifted. The trapdoor opened, his face appeared above her, backlit by lamplight. "They're gone." "But they left 2 men watching the road. They think you're here." Amelia climbed the ladder on shaking legs. When she emerged into the kitchen, she turned to face her unlikely savior. "Thank you," she said. "But you should not have done that. Gerald Marsh is dangerous. He will make your life hell." "Probably," Yates agreed. He set his rifle down on the table and looked at her properly for the first time. His gray-blue eyes studied her face, and she wondered what he saw. A bedraggled woman in a torn dress, covered in dust and sweat, with 3 days of fear etched into her features. "Did you kill his son?" he asked. "No, I swear to you I did not. Tell me what happened. All of it." So she did. She told him about walking back from Mrs. Henderson's house, about hearing the gunshot, about finding Timothy Marsh dying in the alley. She told him about the 3 drunk witnesses who had jumped to conclusions, about Gerald Marsh's instant conviction of her guilt, about the mob that had gathered. "There was a gun," she said, "on the ground near him. I didn't touch it, but I had blood on my hands from trying to help him." That was enough for them. Who did shoot him? I don't know. I didn't see anyone else. But there are plenty of people in Pecos who might have wanted Timothy Marsh dead. He was not a kind man. He cheated at cards, forced himself on women who worked in the saloons, and his father always paid to make problems disappear. Yates was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then he moved to the stove and poured coffee from a pot. He handed her a cup. "You look like you have not eaten in a while." 2 days, she admitted. "I ran out of supplies yesterday." He went to the pantry and came back with bread, cheese, and dried beef. Amelia tried to eat slowly, but her hands were shaking from hunger and exhaustion. Yates sat across from her at the table, watching her with that same calm, measuring gaze. "You can stay here until we figure this out," he said finally. "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why are you helping me? You don't know me, I could be lying." "You could be," he agreed. "But I don't think you are. I've known men like Gerald Marsh before. Rich men who think power gives them the right to decide what is true and what is not. And I saw your face when I opened that door. You were terrified. Guilty people running from justice don't look like that. They look angry or defiant. You just looked scared." Amelia felt tears prick at her eyes. It was the first time in 3 days that anyone had looked at her as anything other than a murderer. What if they come back with a warrant? They won't find one easily. Sheriff Hartley is an honest man, and he won't issue a warrant without evidence. Marsh will have to go higher, maybe to the territorial court. That will take time. And meanwhile, we can try to figure out who really killed his son. You're under my roof now. That makes this my problem too." "I don't understand you," Amelia said. "You're risking everything for a stranger." Yates stood and walked to the window, looking out at the darkening landscape. 5 years ago, I was accused of something I did not do, desertion, in the middle of a campaign against the Comanche. Truth was, I had been scouting ahead and got cut off from my unit. By the time I made it back, they had already marked me down as a deserter. My commanding officer wanted to make an example of me. If it had not been for a Comanche woman who testified that I had been their prisoner during that time, I would have been shot. He turned back to face her. "I know what it's like to be innocent and have everyone believe you're guilty. I won't do that to someone else." Amelia set down her coffee cup. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. "Thank you, Yates Brennan." "Just Yates is fine." "Amelia Lawson." He nodded as if confirming something. "You should rest. There's a bedroom upstairs. I'll take the couch down here. I can't take your bed. You're dead on your feet. Don't argue. She was too tired to protest further. He led her upstairs to a simple but clean bedroom. The bed looked like heaven. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer, he said, but you don't need to be afraid of me. I know, she said, and realized it was true. Despite everything, despite knowing this man for less than an hour, she trusted him. She fell asleep the moment her head touched the pillow. When Amelia woke, sunlight was streaming through the window. She sat up in confusion, disoriented by the unfamiliar room. Then everything came rushing back. The posse, Yates, the root cellar. She stood and looked out the window. The land stretched out in all directions, brown and gold under the morning sun. She could see Yates working near the barn, tending to the horses. Her mare was in the corral, looking much better than she had yesterday. Amelia found a wash basin and pitcher of water in the room. Someone, Yates presumably, had left them there while she slept. She cleaned herself as best she could, wishing desperately for a proper bath. Her dress was filthy and torn. She had nothing else to wear. When she came downstairs, she found fresh coffee on the stove and biscuits wrapped in cloth on the table. Yates was still outside. She ate quickly, then went to the door. He looked up as she approached, wiping sweat from his forehead. You're awake. How long did I sleep? About 14 hours. She blinked. 14 hours, you needed it. He gestured toward the house. There's more food if you are still hungry. I ate, thank you. Is there anything I can do to help? I can't just sit idle while you work. He studied her for a moment. You said you're a nurse. I trained in St. Louis before my parents died. I have been working in Pecos for the past year, helping Doc Patterson. One of my horses has a wound on her leg. I've been treating it, but if you know about medicine, maybe you could take a look. She followed him to the barn. The horse in question was a pretty sorrel mare with a deep gash on her foreleg. Amelia examined it carefully. How did this happen? Barbed wire. Neighbor's fence came down in a storm last week. She got tangled up before I could stop her. You've been cleaning it. Every day. It looks good. No sign of infection. But you should change the bandage twice a day, not once. And there's a poultice I can make that will help it heal faster. Do you have honey and yarrow? Honey, yes. Yarrow, no. I can find some. It grows wild out here. They spent the morning working together. Amelia showed Yates how to make the poultice, and they applied it to the mare's wound. The horse stood patiently, seeming to sense they were helping her. You're good with animals, Yates observed. I grew up on a farm in Missouri. We had horses, cows, chickens. I learned early that animals respond to calm confidence. Like people, she smiled. Yes, like people. As they worked, Amelia found herself studying Yates more closely. In the daylight, she could see the small details she had missed last night, the scar that ran along his jawline, the calluses on his hands, the way he moved with unconscious grace, economical and precise. He was handsome, she realized, in a rough-hewn way. Not polished like the men in town, but real, solid. Tell me about this ranch, she said. How long have you been here? 3 years. I bought the land with my Army pay after I was discharged. It's not much, but it's mine. I run a few head of cattle, break horses for extra money. Mostly I just like the quiet. You live here alone, always have. Don't you get lonely? He was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. But I learned in the Army that I don't fit well with most people. I'm too blunt. Don't have patience for games or politics. Out here I can just be myself. I understand that, Amelia said softly. In Pecos, I always felt like I was performing, being the proper young lady. Never saying what I really thought, never showing too much emotion. It was exhausting. And now I'm a fugitive, hiding from a mob, but at least I don't have to pretend anymore. He smiled at that, a real smile that transformed his face. There's that silver lining. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Yates would ride out early each morning to check on his cattle and scout the surrounding area, making sure the posse had not returned. Amelia would tend to the horses, do chores around the house, and prepare meals. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and talk. She learned that Yates had grown up in Kansas, the youngest of 4 brothers. His family had been farmers, but he had never taken to it. He joined the army at 18, seeking adventure. He found it, but not the kind he had imagined. "The Indian Wars," he said one evening, staring out at the sunset. "That's what they call them. Wars. Like it was 2 armies facing off honorably, but it was not like that. It was messy and cruel, and most of the time I did not even know why we were fighting. Some general in Washington would decide that a tribe needed to be moved, and we would be sent to move them. The tribes would resist, and people would die. So many people. Is that why you left the army? Part of it. After the desertion charge was dropped, I could have stayed. They offered me a promotion, but I was done. I had seen enough." "The Comanche woman who testified for you," Amelia said carefully. "What happened to her? She was killed 6 months later. Cavalry raid on her camp. I found out after I was discharged. I wanted to thank her, but I was too late." The pain in his voice was raw, even years later. Amelia reached out and touched his hand. He looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "Me too." They sat like that for a long moment, the dying sunlight painting everything gold and red. Amelia felt something shift between them, a deepening of the connection that had been building since she arrived. "Tell me about your parents," Yates said, changing the subject. "They were good people. My father was a doctor, my mother a teacher. They believed in helping others, in making the world better. They died of cholera when I was 20. I was studying nursing in St. Louis when it happened. By the time I got back to Missouri, they were already buried. That's why you went to Pecos." "I could not stay in Missouri. Too many memories." "A friend from school told me about a job with Doc Patterson. It seemed like a fresh start. And now you're running again." "Yes," she sighed. "I seem to be good at running." "You're not running now," she looked at him. "No, I suppose I'm not." On the 5th day, Yates rode into town. Not Pecos, but the small settlement of Adobe Wells, about 20 miles south. He came back with news and supplies. "Gerald Marsh is offering a reward," he said, unpacking flour and coffee from his saddlebags. $500 for information leading to your capture." Amelia felt her stomach drop. $500, that's a fortune. He wants you badly. "Did anyone ask about me?" "Not specifically, but people were talking. The story's gotten bigger. Now they're saying you were Timothy's mistress, that you killed him in a jealous rage." "That's absurd." "I barely knew Timothy Marsh." "Doesn't matter. People believe what makes a good story." She sank into a chair, feeling the weight of it all. "This is never going to end, is it? I'm going to spend the rest of my life running." Yates knelt in front of her, his hands on her knees. "No. We're going to figure this out, I promise you." "How?" "I sent a telegram to an old army friend. He's a detective now in San Antonio. I asked him to look into Timothy Marsh, find out who might have wanted him dead. If we can find the real killer, we can clear your name. That could take weeks." "Months? Then you'll stay here for weeks or months." "Yates, you can't keep risking yourself for me." "I can, and I will." His gray-blue eyes were fierce. "You're under my protection now, Amelia. That means something to me." She felt tears threatening again. This man, this stranger, was showing her more loyalty than people she had known for years. "Why?" she whispered. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because—" He hesitated, then continued, "Because I care about what happens to you." The admission hung in the air between them. Amelia realized that her hands had moved to cover his where they rested on her knees. "I care about you too," she said softly. Yates stood, breaking the moment. but she could see the emotion in his face, the struggle to maintain distance. "I should check on the cattle," he said. After he left, Amelia sat at the table, her mind racing. She was falling for this man. Despite the circumstances, despite the danger, despite everything, she was falling in love with Yates Brennan. And from the look in his eyes, he felt the same way, but what future could they have? She was a fugitive. Even if they proved her innocence, the stain of accusation would follow her forever. Yates deserved better than a woman with a price on her head. That night, she could not sleep. She went downstairs and found Yates on the porch, sitting in the darkness. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. She shook her head and sat beside him. The night was cool, a relief after the heat of the day. Stars blazed overhead more than she had ever seen in town. "It's beautiful out here," she said. "It's the thing I love most about this place. The stars." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Yates spoke. "When this is over, when we clear your name, what will you do?" "I don't know. I had not thought that far ahead. I suppose I'll have to leave Texas, start over somewhere else." "You could stay here." She looked at him. He was staring straight ahead, his profile outlined by starlight. "Stay here," she repeated, "on the ranch with me. If you wanted to." Her heart began to race. "Yates, I know it's too soon. I know the circumstances are all wrong, but I need to say this because I might not get another chance." He turned to face her. "You're the first person in years who has made me want something more than just solitude. When I look at you, I see a future I had not let myself imagine. And I know you might not feel the same way, but I had to tell you." Amelia felt like her chest was going to burst. "I do feel the same way. But I'm terrified, Yates. What if we can't clear my name? What if Marsh finds me? I can't drag you down with me." "You're not dragging me anywhere. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." She reached up and touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw, feeling the roughness of stubble under her fingers. He closed his eyes at her touch. "I'm choosing you too," she whispered. He kissed her then, slow and gentle, as if she was something precious that might break. Amelia leaned into him, letting herself feel all the emotions she had been holding back. Fear, hope, desire, love. It was overwhelming and perfect at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "We should get some sleep," Yates said, but he made no move to stand. "We should," Amelia agreed, but she stayed right where she was. They sat together on the porch until dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. 2 weeks after Amelia's arrival, a rider appeared on the horizon. Yates spotted him first and immediately went on alert. He got Amelia inside and positioned himself on the porch with his rifle. But as the rider drew closer, Yates relaxed. "It's okay, I know him." The man who dismounted in front of the house was lean and weathered, with sharp eyes and a deputy's badge on his vest. He nodded to Yates. "Brennan." "Hartley, this is unexpected." Sheriff James Hartley of Reeves County looked at Amelia, who had come to stand in the doorway. "You must be Miss Lawson." She felt her blood run cold. "You're here to arrest me." "No, madam. I'm here to talk to you. May I come in?" Yates looked at Amelia. She nodded slowly, and they all went inside. Hartley accepted coffee and sat at the table. "I'll be blunt. Gerald Marsh has been raising hell, demanding I arrest you or arrest Brennan for harboring a fugitive. He went to the territorial court, and they're sending a marshal. Should be here within the week." "So it's over," Amelia said numbly. "Not necessarily. See, I've been doing some investigating of my own. Partly because Marsh annoys me with his high-handed ways, and partly because the whole thing did not sit right. Timothy Marsh shot in an alley, and the only witness is a respectable woman who worked with Doc Patterson. Didn't make sense." He pulled out a notebook. "I've been asking questions in Pecos, quietly. Turns out young Timothy owed a lot of money to a gambler named Jack Sutter, $3,000. That's a powerful motive for murder. Amelia leaned forward. Did you question this Sutter? I did. He has an alibi. He was dealing cards in the Silver Star that night. Dozen witnesses saw him. But here's the interesting part. Sutter says Timothy promised to pay him back within a week. Said he had come into some money. From where? Yates asked. That I don't know, but I did find out that Timothy had been courting the daughter of William Preston. You know Preston? Yates nodded. Rich rancher, owns land north of Pecos. That's right. And his daughter, Caroline, is set to inherit everything. Timothy had been courting her for months. But 3 days before he died, Preston caught Timothy forcing himself on Caroline in the barn. Preston threw him off the property and swore if he ever came near Caroline again, he would kill him. Amelia felt a surge of hope. That's your suspect, then. Maybe. Preston is a hard man and he loves his daughter, but he is also smart. If he was going to kill Timothy, he would not do it in a public alley, too risky. Then who? Amelia asked. Hartley shook his head. That's what I can't figure. But here's what I propose. The marshal is coming and he is going to want to take you back to Pecos for trial. But if I can show him evidence of another suspect, he might be willing to delay. Give us more time to investigate. What do you need from us? Yates asked. I need Miss Lawson to write down everything she remembers from that night. Every detail, no matter how small. And I need to know if there is anyone else who might have seen something. Anyone at all. Amelia thought hard. There was a woman. She came out of the back door of the saloon while I was kneeling by Timothy. She looked scared and ran off. I did not recognize her. What did she look like? Young, maybe 20. Dark hair, pale skin. She was wearing a green dress. Hartley wrote this down. That might be Rose Martinez. She works at the Silver Star. I'll talk to her. He stood to leave. I'll do what I can, Miss Lawson, but you should prepare yourself. The law is coming for you, and if I can't find solid evidence, you are going to have to face trial. After he left, Amelia sat down heavily. At least someone believes me. Hartley is a good man, Yates said. If he says he'll help, he will. But what if it's not enough? Yates knelt in front of her again, taking her hands. Then we'll deal with it, together. She squeezed his hands, drawing strength from his presence. Over the past 2 weeks, he had become her anchor, the one stable thing in a world that had turned upside down. That night, unable to sleep again, Amelia found herself thinking about everything Hartley had said. The gambler, the rancher, the mysterious woman in green. Pieces of a puzzle she could not quite fit together. She went through her memories of that night again and again. She had been walking back from Mrs. Henderson's house on Oak Street. She had cut through the alley beside the Silver Star because it was faster. She heard the shot. She ran toward the sound. Wait. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. She had heard the shot and run toward it, but that meant the shooter would have had to run away. In which direction? Not toward her, she would have seen them. Not deeper into the alley, it was a dead end. Which meant they must have gone into the Silver Star through the back door. The woman in the green dress had come out of that same door moments later. Amelia threw off the covers and ran downstairs. Yates was asleep on the couch, but he woke instantly when she entered the room. What's wrong? The woman in green. She did not just see what happened. She was there. She might be the killer, or she might have seen who did it. Either way, she knows something. Yates was fully awake now. Rose Martinez. We need to talk to her before Hartley does. If she is involved, she might run. It's too dangerous for you to go into town. Then you go. Please, Yates, this might be our only chance. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. I'll leave at first light. Amelia could not go back to sleep. She paced the house, too wound up to rest. Yates got up and made coffee, and they sat together at the table. What if she won't talk to you? Amelia asked. I can be persuasive. What if she's dangerous? I've faced dangerous people before. Yates, I don't want you to get hurt because of me. He reached across the table and took her hand. "Amelia, listen to me. You are not a burden. You are not a problem to be solved. You are someone I care about deeply, and I will do whatever it takes to protect you and clear your name. Understand?" She nodded, blinking back tears. "Good. Now try to rest while I'm gone. I'll be back before dark." He left as the sun was rising, riding his big buckskin gelding. Amelia watched him go, her heart in her throat. The day passed with agonizing slowness. She tried to keep busy, tending the horses, weeding the small garden behind the house, mending a tear in one of Yates's shirts. But her mind kept drifting to him, wondering if he was safe, if he had found Rose Martinez, if he had learned anything useful. The sun was setting when she finally saw him returning. She ran out to meet him as he dismounted. "What happened?" "I found her. It took some doing, but I convinced her to talk." And she saw the whole thing. Timothy was meeting someone in that alley, a man. They argued, it got heated, and the man shot Timothy. Rose was watching from the back door of the saloon. She saw it all. Did she see who the man was? No. He was wearing a hat pulled low and it was dark, but she heard Timothy call him by name. "What name, Charles?" Amelia frowned. "I don't know anyone named Charles in Pecos." Neither does Rose. But she is willing to testify to what she saw. That alone should be enough to establish reasonable doubt. Why did she not come forward before? She was scared. Gerald Marsh has a reputation for making problems disappear. She thought if she testified against his version of events, she would end up dead. But I convinced her that letting an innocent woman hang was worse. Amelia threw her arms around him, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. He held her close, his chin resting on top of her head. "We are getting closer," he murmured. "I can feel it." That night they sent word to Sheriff Hartley about Rose's testimony. He arrived the next morning and Rose came with him, looking nervous but determined. Hartley questioned her thoroughly, writing down every detail. When he was finished, he looked at Amelia. "This changes things. With an eyewitness who can contradict the drunk witnesses, the case against you falls apart, but we still need to find this Charles." "I've been thinking about that," Rose said quietly. "There's a man who comes to the saloon sometimes. He uses a different name, but I always thought he looked familiar. He was there the night Timothy died." "What name does he use?" Hartley asked. "Charlie Smith. But that's got to be fake. Everyone knows Charlie Smith is a made-up name." "What does he look like?" "Tall, thin, dark hair going gray. He has a scar on his left hand shaped like a half-moon." Hartley sat back, his expression grim. "I know who that is, Charles Preston, William Preston's younger brother." The revelation hung in the air like a thunderclap. "Why would he kill Timothy?" Amelia asked. "For his niece," Hartley said. "Caroline. William threw Timothy off his property and threatened to kill him, but Charles might have decided to actually do it, protecting the family honor. Can you arrest him on the testimony of a saloon girl?" "Against a Preston, I'll need more evidence." "What about the gun?" Yates asked. "The one found at the scene, can you trace it?" "Already tried. No serial number, could belong to anyone." They talked for another hour trying to find a way forward. Finally, Hartley stood to leave. "I'll talk to Charles Preston. See if I can rattle him, get him to make a mistake. In the meantime, the marshal is due tomorrow. I'll stall him as long as I can, but Miss Lawson, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility of arrest." After they left, Amelia felt the weight of despair settling over her again. They were so close, but close might not be enough. Yates pulled her into his arms. "Don't give up, not yet." "I'm trying not to, but I'm so tired, Yates. Tired of running, tired of being afraid." "I know. But you are the strongest person I have ever met. You can get through this." She looked up at him. "I don't feel strong." Strength is not about never being afraid. It's about being terrified and moving forward anyway. You have done that every day since you got here." She kissed him then, pouring all her fear and love and gratitude into it. He responded with equal intensity, his hands tangling in her hair. "Whatever happens," she said when they broke apart, "I want you to know that these weeks with you have been the best of my life." "They're not over yet," he said fiercely. "We're going to get through this and then we'll have years together. I promise you that." She wanted to believe him. She wanted it so badly it hurt. The marshal arrived the next afternoon. His name was Thomas Grant, and he was a career lawman with a reputation for fairness. Hartley brought him to the ranch, along with a written statement from Rose Martinez. Grant questioned Amelia for over an hour, his manner professional but not unkind. She told him everything, including details she had not remembered before. The way Timothy had gasped her name when she knelt beside him, as if trying to tell her something. The sound of running footsteps she had heard just before the drunk witnesses appeared. When she was finished, Grant sat back and studied her. "Miss Lawson, I am going to be honest with you. The evidence against you is largely circumstantial. You were found with the body, you had blood on your hands, and there were witnesses who saw you there. But there's no clear motive, no murder weapon tied to you, and now we have a witness who says she saw someone else shoot Timothy Marsh. Does that mean I'm free to go? It means I'm not going to arrest you today. But I am opening a formal investigation into Timothy Marsh's death, and you are required to remain available for questioning. Sheriff Hartley has agreed to vouch for you, and Mr. Brennan has offered to post a bond. If you run, you will be hunted down and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Good. I'm going to Pico's to question Charles Preston. If his story does not check out, he will be the one facing murder charges." After Grant left, Amelia felt like she could breathe for the first time in weeks. She was not free, not yet, but she was not in chains either. Yates swept her into his arms and spun her around. "See, I told you we would figure it out," she laughed, giddy with relief. "It's not over yet, but we are winning, and that's what matters." That night they celebrated with a real meal. Yates had brought back supplies from town, and Amelia cooked a feast: steak, potatoes, fresh bread, and apple pie. They ate on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. "I could get used to this," Yates said. "To what?" "To having someone to share meals with, to not eating alone every night." "I could get used to it too," Amelia said softly. They talked late into the night about everything and nothing. Their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Amelia told him about her desire to open a clinic someday, a place where people could get medical care regardless of their ability to pay. Yates told her about his dream of expanding the ranch, breeding horses that combined speed with endurance. "We could do both," Yates said. "Build a clinic on the property. You could practice medicine, I could raise horses. We would be partners." "Is that a proposal?" Amelia asked, her heart racing. Yates stood and pulled her to her feet. He took both her hands in his. "Amelia Lawson, I know we have only known each other for a few weeks. I know the circumstances have been unusual to say the least. But I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you. I want to build a life with you here on this land. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face. "Yes. Yes, Yates, I will marry you." He kissed her, and it felt like coming home. News came a week later. Marshal Grant had questioned Charles Preston, and the man had broken down and confessed. He had killed Timothy Marsh to protect his niece's honor. In his mind, it was justice. The law saw it differently. Charles was arrested and taken to stand trial. Amelia's name was cleared. Gerald Marsh, faced with the evidence of his son's crimes and the identity of the real killer, withdrew his accusations. The reward was canceled. She was free. Hartley came to deliver the news in person. "You can go anywhere you want now, Miss Lawson. Your name is cleared in every county in Texas." "I know where I want to be," she said, looking at Yates. They were married a month later in Adobe Wells, with Sheriff Hartley and Rose Martinez as witnesses. It was a small ceremony, but it was perfect. Amelia wore a simple blue dress that Yates had bought for her in town, and he wore his best shirt and a string tie. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Yates kissed her with such tenderness that Amelia thought her heart would burst. They returned to the ranch that had become her sanctuary and began building their life together. True to his word, Yates helped her establish a small clinic in one of the outbuildings. Word spread that there was a skilled nurse willing to treat anyone who came to her door, and soon people were making the journey from surrounding towns. Amelia found herself busier than she had ever been in Pecos, treating everything from broken bones to difficult births. Yates built her a proper examination room and stocked it with medical supplies. He was her partner in every sense of the word, supporting her work while building up his horse breeding operation. They were happy. Deeply, contentedly happy. A year after their wedding, Amelia discovered she was pregnant. She told Yates one evening as they sat on the porch watching the stars, "I'm going to have a baby." He turned to her, his eyes wide. "Are you certain?" "I'm a nurse, Yates. I'm certain." He let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around before carefully setting her back down. "A baby. We're going to have a baby. Are you happy?" "Happy, Amelia, I'm over the moon." Their son was born in the spring of 1878, during a thunderstorm that shook the windows of the ranch house. Amelia labored through the night with Yates at her side, refusing to leave even when she told him to. When the baby finally arrived, screaming and healthy, Yates wept. They named him Samuel after Amelia's father. 2 years later, a daughter followed. They named her Grace, and she had Yates's gray-blue eyes and Amelia's dark hair. Life settled into a rhythm. The ranch prospered. Amelia's clinic grew. The children thrived. Yates proved to be a devoted father, patient and kind, teaching Samuel to ride and Grace to be fearless. On quiet evenings after the children were asleep, Yates and Amelia would sit on the porch and remember how they had met. How a desperate woman had ridden into his yard and he had chosen to protect her. "Do you ever regret it?" Amelia asked one night. "Taking me in that day?" Yates pulled her close. "Never. That was the day my life truly began. Mine too," she said, kissing him. The years passed. Samuel grew tall and strong with his father's quiet confidence. Grace was spirited and clever, determined to be a doctor like her grandfather. They had 2 more children, twin boys named Daniel and Matthew, who kept the ranch house in constant chaos. Yates expanded the horse operation until it was known throughout Texas. Amelia trained 2 younger women to help at the clinic, passing on her knowledge and skills. Together, they built something that mattered, something that would outlast them. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Yates surprised Amelia with a trip to St. Louis, where she had trained as a nurse. They stayed in a fine hotel and attended the opera and walked the streets of her youth. "You miss it?" he asked. "City life?" "Not even a little bit," she said. "My life is in Texas now, with you." They returned to the ranch to find that their children had decorated the house with wildflowers and ribbons. Samuel, now 19, had cooked dinner with Grace's help. The twins had made a banner that read, "Welcome home." That night, surrounded by her family, Amelia reflected on the strange path her life had taken. From accused murderer to wife and mother, from fugitive to respected healer. All because one man had chosen to believe in her when no one else would. She looked across the table at Yates, who was laughing at something Daniel had said, and felt a wave of love so intense it nearly overwhelmed her. He caught her eye and smiled, that same quiet smile that had first made her feel safe all those years ago. After dinner, they walked out to the porch, their favorite spot. 20 years, Yates said. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like we've always been together. I know what you mean, but I would not change a single moment, not even the beginning. Running for your life, hiding in a root cellar, not even that, because it brought me to you. He pulled her into his arms. You know what I think about sometimes? What would have happened if I had not opened that door that day, if I had turned you away? Don't, Amelia said. I can't bear to think about it. Neither can I. Because this, right here, this life we have built together, it's everything I never knew I wanted. They stood together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the Texas night. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Closer by, the horses moved quietly in their corral. Inside the house, they could hear their children laughing. You remember what you promised me? Amelia asked. That first week when everything seemed hopeless. I promised we would get through it together. You kept that promise. You have kept every promise you ever made to me, and I'll keep making them for the rest of our lives. She tilted her face up to his. I love you, Yates Brennan. I love you too, Amelia Brennan. They kissed under the stars, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful from the ashes of fear and injustice. The years continued to roll by. Samuel married a rancher's daughter from Adobe Wells and brought her to live on the property, building a house just over the hill from the main ranch. He took over more and more of the horse operation as Yates began to slow down. Grace went to medical school in Houston, fulfilling her dream of becoming a doctor. She returned to practice in Pecos, the town that had once condemned her mother, and became beloved for her skill and compassion. The irony was not lost on Amelia. The twins went into business together, opening a mercantile in Adobe Wells that quickly became the most successful store in 3 counties. Yates and Amelia became grandparents, then great-grandparents. The ranch house was always full of children's laughter, of family gatherings, of love. As they grew older, they would sit on the porch more and more, content to watch the world go by. Yates's hair went silver, and Amelia's developed streaks of white. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the young people they had been, bound together by crisis and choice. On a warm evening in the fall of 1908, 30 years after the day they met, Yates and Amelia sat together watching the sunset. Yates had been ill for several months, his heart finally giving out after 7 decades of life. I'm not afraid, he told her, holding her hand. I know, Amelia said, though her own heart was breaking. Promise me you will not grieve too long. Promise me you will keep living. I promise. I have had a good life, Amelia, the best life, because of you. We had it together. He smiled, that quiet smile she had loved for 3 decades. Yes, together. He died peacefully that night, Amelia holding his hand, their children and grandchildren gathered around. The funeral was the largest Adobe Wells had ever seen. People came from all over Texas to pay their respects to the man who had been known for his integrity, his skill with horses, and his fierce protection of those he loved. Amelia stood by his grave and thought about the day they had met. About a terrified woman and a taciturn cowboy who had made an impossible choice. About how that choice had led to a lifetime of love. She kept her promise to him. She did not grieve too long. Instead, she threw herself into the clinic, into her family, into living. She told her grandchildren stories about their grandfather, about his courage and kindness. She made sure they knew that love was worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. She lived another 10 years, active and engaged until the very end. When she finally passed, peacefully in her sleep, She was surrounded by the family she and Yates had created together. They buried her next to him, on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. The headstone read, Amelia Lawson Brennan, 1855–1918, beloved wife, mother, healer. She faced injustice with courage and built a life of love, and beside it, Yates Brennan, 1848–1908, devoted husband, father, friend. He chose compassion over fear. Their descendants continued to work the ranch for generations. The clinic Amelia founded evolved into a hospital that served the region. The horses Yates bred became legendary for their stamina and spirit, but more than the physical legacy, they left behind something intangible but powerful. A story of how love can bloom in the darkest circumstances. How choosing to help a stranger can change the course of lives. How justice delayed is not justice denied, as long as people are willing to fight for it. On summer evenings, when the great-great-grandchildren of Yates and Amelia would gather on the old ranch porch, now restored and preserved as a historic site, they would tell the story again. About a posse hunting an innocent woman. About a cowboy who hid her under his own roof. About how that act of courage led to a love that spanned decades and changed the course of a family. The story always ended the same way, with a reminder that doing the right thing, even when it is hard, even when it is dangerous, is always worth it. Because you never know what beautiful thing might grow from a single act of kindness. The ranch still stands, a testament to what two people can build when they choose love over fear, justice over convenience, and each other over everything else. The land Yates worked so hard to tame is now protected, a reminder of the wild Texas that shaped him. The clinic Amelia founded continues to serve those who need it most, carrying on her legacy of compassion. And somewhere in the Texas wind, in the whisper of grass across the prairie, in the call of the coyotes at night, the love of Yates and Amelia Brennan lives on, as enduring as the land itself. Their story became legend, passed down through generations, adapted and retold but never forgotten. It was a reminder that even in the roughest corners of the Wild West, love could flourish. That even when the world seemed set against you, one person's choice to stand beside you could change everything. The descendants of Yates and Amelia carried their values forward. They were known throughout Texas for their integrity, their compassion, and their unwavering commitment to justice. When asked about where these values came from, they would always tell the story of their ancestors. The fugitive and the cowboy. The woman who ran and the man who hid her. As the 20th century progressed and the Wild West became history, the story of Yates and Amelia became part of the mythology of Texas. Historians would study it, novelists would adapt it, and families would tell it to their children as a bedtime story. But at its heart, it was always the same simple truth. Love can be found in the most unexpected places. Courage can come from the quietest people. And sometimes, opening your door to a stranger in need can be the beginning of the greatest adventure of your life. The ranch house where Amelia first found refuge still had the root cellar where she hid from the posse. Visitors could climb down the ladder and stand in the dark, imagining what it must have been like to hide there, terrified and alone, trusting a stranger to protect you. The barn where Yates and Amelia had worked on healing the wounded mare was preserved too, along with the corral where Yates had taught Samuel and Grace to ride. Every building, every fence post, every tree had a story, but the most important part of the ranch was the porch. That simple wooden porch where Yates and Amelia had sat together for thousands of evenings, talking, planning, dreaming, and simply being together. It was there that they had fallen in love, there that Yates had proposed, there that they had made the decisions that shaped their family's future. The porch was kept exactly as it had been, with two rocking chairs positioned to look out over the land. Visitors would sit in those chairs and imagine what it must have been like to watch the sunset after a day of hard work, to plan a future together, to build something meaningful in a harsh and unforgiving land. The story of Yates and Amelia Brennan was many things: a love story, a tale of injustice overcome, a Western adventure, but most of all, it was a testament to the power of choosing to do the right thing, even when it is hard, even when it is dangerous, even when it would be easier to close the door and pretend you did not see someone in need. Yates Brennan had opened his door to a desperate stranger, and in doing so, he had found the love of his life. Amelia Lawson had trusted a man she did not know, and in doing so, she had found her home. Together, they had built something that would last long after they were gone. Their love story was not perfect. They had their arguments, their struggles, their difficult days. Raising 4 children on a working ranch was not easy. Building a medical practice from nothing was not easy. Making a life in the harsh Texas landscape was not easy. But they faced it all together, with courage and determination and an unshakable faith in each other. And in the end, that was what mattered. Not the obstacles they faced, but how they faced them. Not the problems they encountered, but how they solved them. Together. When Amelia had ridden into Yates's yard that desperate August day in 1876, she had been running from injustice, fleeing from a mob that wanted her dead. She had no plan beyond survival, no hope beyond making it through one more day. Yates had given her more than shelter. He had given her hope. He had believed in her when no one else would. He had risked everything to protect her. And in doing so, he had shown her what real love looked like. It was not grand gestures or flowery words. It was choosing to stand beside someone when the world was against them. It was working together to solve problems. It was building a life one day at a time, through hard work and dedication and unwavering commitment. That was the legacy Yates and Amelia left behind. Not just the physical ranch and clinic, but the example of how to love well, how to choose justice over convenience, how to build something meaningful in a difficult world. Their great-great-grandchildren would tell the story to their own children, and the cycle would continue, each generation learning from the one before. Each person inspired by the example of 2 people who had faced impossible odds and won, because in the end, that was the true message of their story. That love is stronger than fear. That justice will prevail if people are willing to fight for it. That opening your heart to someone in need can be the beginning of the most beautiful journey of your life. Yates and Amelia Brennan had lived and loved and built something that would endure. Their story was woven into the fabric of Texas history, a reminder that even in the roughest, toughest corners of the Wild West, love could bloom and flourish and create something beautiful. The ranch still stands. The clinic still serves. The horses descended from Yates's breeding program still run across the Texas plains. And on quiet evenings, when the sun sets over the land they loved, you can almost feel their presence. 2 souls who found each other against all odds and chose to build a life together. That is the story of Amelia Lawson and Yates Brennan. A posse was hunting her for something she did not do. A cowboy hid her under his own roof. And from that simple act of courage and compassion, a love story for the ages was born. A story that reminds us all that doing the right thing, choosing love over fear, and standing up for justice are always worth it, no matter the cost. Because the rewards, the love that can grow from such choices, are beyond measure. Their story is complete, their lives well lived, their legacy secure. And somewhere in the Texas wind, their love lives on, eternal and unbreakable, a testament to the power of two hearts choosing each other and never letting go.